is the time to take action to invite our next trend shapers to help us lead and set the path for the future. Please help me welcome and join very firstly Mr. Abhishek Bansal, Head Non-Financial Risk and Chief Information Security Officer, Max Life Insurance. We have with us Mr. Mathan Kasilingam, EVP, CISO Vodafone India. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Ms. Sakshi Vidur, Director Enterprise IT Security, Philips. Please help me welcome Mr. T.R. Venkateswaran, Chief Information Security Officer, Punjab National Bank. We have with us Mr. Sudharsan, APAC Solutions, Lead Data Intelligence and Content Solutions, Hitachi, Vantara. And last but not the least, please help me welcome and join our captivating moderator for this panel, Mr. Mayuran Palanisamy, Partner and Data Privacy Lead, KPMG India. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you once again for taking out your valuable time from your busy schedules and joining us and gracing and adding so much of value to this session. We look forward for your insights and your valuable expertise. I'll be urging our moderator to please carry it forward from here.
Sure. Thanks, Prajakta. Good afternoon, one and all. First of all, my sincere thanks to the organizers for getting this powerful, power-packed panel together. And I'm sure it's going to be a learning session for me. I'm going to hear from them in terms of their views on the topic we're going to discuss. As the context was set, the point for discussion today is that cyber governance and data protection. So what I've done is that I have thematically kind of divided this into three different areas. Cyber governance, data privacy, I think that is also one critical and evolving area in our country. Third is the data protection part, right? While these are very much interconnected and there is a lot of dependency between these three topics, right? But not with any particular order. So I may shuffle between these topics as I ask questions with from our panelists. So probably to start the conversation, I would like to set the context with one simple question about what are the key elements of cyber governance, right? I mean, everybody's talking about cyber because I know cyber has been a topic for discussion for many years, and off late during pandemic, it became a very, very important point across levels, right? I mean, whether it be board or below, everybody started talking about it. So let me start with Venkat sir on this question. What are the key elements do you think should be part of the cyber governance? And what are the typical challenges organizations face when it comes to governing cyber in a good manner?
Good afternoon, everybody. See, cyber governance or any governance is not a new topic. This has been there. So when we are into business, we should know our landscape. We should know the risks involved. We should know the opportunities and risks and the controls which are to be put in place and the monitoring of the controls which are to be taken care of on a regular basis. In case of cyber governance, we look into the aspects of one is the strategy. One is the organizations will have a business strategy. Against that, there will be an IT strategy or a digital strategy. And then there will be a security strategy towards that in alignment with the business objectives of the organization. Okay. So one is the strategy part. The other aspect is we will be trying to put in place various security solutions which are required to address the various risks. So to assess that, there will be a risk analysis which will be done. Okay. The risk analysis will cover the threats, the vulnerabilities, the threats, and its impact on the organization. So we will make an assessment of the risks, and then we will try to bring in the mitigants towards that risk in the form of controls. It will be either a security solution or a manual control to address that particular risk. Okay. Then there will also be a process of risk acceptance. Okay. If we are not able to mitigate some risks, we will be getting into the process of risk acceptance like cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is a risk mitigant. Okay. So this, who will give authority, who will give approvals for this, that will be the context of the cyber governance. Then if you are in a regulated environment, organizations like banks, they are regulated by RBI and other agencies. So if we are in a regulated environment, there is certain requirements of reporting the incidents and taking giving some information to the various entities, regulatory bodies like, let's say it may be SEBI, it may be RBI, it may be certain. So this we should know what all to be reported, what are not to be reported. So you will have a cyber incident reporting system. Then you will also have the policies which are governing.
Venkat sir,
Yes.
Venkat sir, I'd like to pick up one point you mentioned. I think that is exactly I was thinking in my mind in terms of what should be the next direction for this conversation. So you highlighted about the cyber risk quantification part, right? So probably I'll invite Mathan also to come in here because cyber risk quantification is a big topic now because I mean everything depends on that in terms of what sort of budget you want to allocate for a particular risk, right? So Mathan, do you want to quickly give an overview in terms of how you think the cyber risk quantification is evolving now? I mean, are we really able to quantify the cyber risk, or it is still kind of very qualitative approach?
No, I think at least in my own personal experience, I have managed to quantify it to a more appropriate level over the past 7+ years. While it may not be in the same firm, but then in multiple firms that I have done through, I have managed to quantify. Difficult, I do acknowledge the fact that it is a difficult proposition to quantify the overall aspect of cyber risk. To state so, it's actually a continual journey, which is as same as in any risk management perspective. Typically, CISOs land up coming up with a complete laundry list of KPI, KRIs, which typically becomes a wider wish list. It is important for a CISO to determine what would he prioritize to have them addressed on priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. There would be a point in time that you would have seen that you have gone past the priority 3 list also. What do I do next? Which is where tightening the nuts and bolts, which is making the parameters that are being used to monitor your KPI can be slightly more tightened up, thereby enhancing your KPI and thereby the risk metrics. So I think in current context, I can relatively say that most of us have evolved from pure play qualitative analysis to a quantitative analysis, determining KPIs and demonstrating that as an overall risk.
Thanks, Mathan. Just to add in that definitely as the cyber risks are changing, I think this quantification approach will also, I think, evolve. It will become better or matured eventually. So from Mathan, I'd like to go to Sakshi. Sakshi, a quick question regarding the point which Mathan mentioned about the KPIs and KRIs, right? So according to you, what are some of the key KPIs and KRIs for cyber governance, right? Because this is something which many organizations are still haggling with, right? And would be happy to hear from you on that.
Sure. Thanks for having me on board. Very interesting panel. And I'd just like to start by saying that, the views are my personal and not of my organization. So interesting question there. And I think it's the greatest challenge today for, a CISO to be able to map the information security risks that they know the organization is facing to the business outcomes so that the business leaders can understand them. So, as CISOs, they've been charged to bridge the gap between the cyber risk, business outcomes, and the key risk indicators. So that's like the secret weapon I feel that, the CISOs have. So key risk indicators are actually, tactically applying the risk appetite statement in my view. So KPIs are more backward-looking indicators and KRIs are more forward-looking indicator to predict where your organization is going. And this includes all facets of an organization. It's like, early warning risk signals that can be expressed to the board and mitigated. So for cyber risk managers and CISOs that manage the cyber risk, cyber security key risk indicators are listing the benefits and the risks that are associated with the business strategy. So let me share a few examples. For example, if your business objective is to increase revenue generation from an e-commerce channel, then your key risk indicator is going to be your payment platform is not available during peak periods, due to a denial of service attack. Your website code is infiltrated. Another example would be if your business objective is to shorten the time between the online order and physical delivery. The KRI for that would be your order tracking system is infected with a malware, it's leading to reduced sales and negative customer perception. Or if there is an integrity attack on the customer records, which is leading to maybe an order being delivered to a wrong address. So the key risk indicators are the marriage of the desired outcome that come from the C-suite itself, in my view, and the technical knowledge that comes from the security professionals. So it kind of gets embedded and delivers value to both sides. So in order to be able to effectively operationalize the risk quantification practices for a business, the leadership must be able to understand how to map the cyber risk matrix to the outcome of the strategic goal that they're looking to achieve. So yeah, for security and CISOs, having the processes in place to facilitate the delivery of the risk data in a way that is understandable to the business leaders and units is, I think, critical. And yeah, overall, I would say that, this approach and objective should be to streamline, to automate, the cybersecurity initiatives, the supply chain compliance and performance management in real time.
Sure. Sakshi, if I quickly summarize, I think you're saying that there won't be kind of one-size-fits solution or KRA KPIs for the organization. It is largely aligned to the business objectives. Thank you so much for highlighting those points. Sorry, you're saying something.
No, I was just saying it's like the key is to be able to integrate cyber risks into the business risk. Leadership conversation. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So from the governance part, while I'll come back to governance a little later, I have a question to Venkat sir regarding the banking stuff. I'll come to that in some time. Let me quickly go to the next domain or the area I would like to cover is the data privacy. So this is to Abhishek, right? Abhishek, I'm sure that you are following on the bill, right? How it has evolved in the last 2-3 years now. In many sense, it is slightly becoming a. We started with something to be kind of focusing on the freedom and rights of individual. Now we are talking about data which is beyond personal data as well, right? So what are your views in terms of, are we in the right direction of thinking? Because if you see most of the matured countries, their focus has been very clear, saying that it's going to be personal information or sensitive personal information, focusing on the freedoms and right of individuals, right? Now, it looks like we are trying to bring in a lot of other elements with the right intentions, right? But do you think this is something which will shape up in the right manner, or there will be challenges on this now?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on this panel, and great question, Mayuran. I would refrain to actually give a direction more so from a government and a regulatory standpoint, but broadly, my views align to that. Yes, it is a right step in the right direction. The business is actually going more and more digital, where the ask and the anticipation from the end user is how my data is dealt with. And this is something which is going to be the need in terms of the more, when we're saying it is not only individuals, but also devices acting on behalf of individuals. So the thin line between what to qualify as personal and non-personal is somewhere a big question mark. But I think this regulation and the kind of deliberations which are going on towards it. Had I been the consumer, would I like to see some of my rights? I know who is using my information in what aspects. I know is my consent taken to that extent. When it is being processed. So the short answer is yes, right? So I think that's where it's a right step in right direction. Now, how it pans out for organizations to put in controls, how it pans out in terms of a regulatory authority reviews put up on top of it, right, is something which will see the light of the day. Said that, I think being in the financial sector, we do have small elements of, I'll not say a full-fledged data protection bill, but today also, in insurance sector, right, there are already obligations which the regulator puts up. How do you kind of safeguard the personal information and rights of actually your policy holders? So to that extent, some bit of it is there, but I know as we are seeing this as a regulation which is maturing globally, I think there are some facets which need to be kind of brought in, because it is not only about one organization or about one individual. Sometimes a broader regulatory landscape helps you solidify the overall ecosystem, and that's where I feel this is something which is imperative.
Sure, thanks Abhishek. So probably Sudharsan, I'll come to you, right? It is more of a continuation of the question I asked to Abhishek. If you see the way the privacy as a subject has evolved, right? A few years back it was more of a compliance thing, where organizations thought that by updating the privacy notice they'll be compliant to privacy requirements. Then they realized there is a lot of deeper things have to be done. Off late, the realization is that data governance can be one of the best way to solve this problem, right? Rather than looking at data privacy as a kind of a compliance thing and focusing in silo, how do we solve overall, right? And the data privacy solutions or issue becomes the subset of the overall problem and solve it together, right? So quick question to you. I mean, there are two questions, in fact, not one. One is that, I mean, there is always a challenge in kind of managing structured and unstructured data, right? And what do you think are some of the challenges which are kind of getting solved now, right? With the help of technology or with the kind of maturity we have achieved, so on and so forth. So this is first part of the question. Second part of the question is that, I mean, while the overall part of data governance comes under the CDO in many organizations, right? Chief Data Officer, obviously he'll have to work hand in hand with the privacy person, right? Because the objectives are slightly different. While the CDO may try to derive the value from the data he has, on the other side, the privacy person is going to put in controls to, in a way, intentionally or unintentionally get restricted somewhere, right? So how do you see these challenges getting managed within the organizations? Sorry, I had to post two questions back to back. Probably you can answer in the sequence or order you want. You're on mute, Sudarshan.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayuran, and good afternoon to everyone. So first, let's look at the challenges that exist, and then we look at what are the various frameworks that vendors as such as such as us are advising our customers. At the same time, let's look at the other aspects of the questions that you asked. So we see that from the different customer environments, we see that the challenges typically exist because of there is that whole aggressiveness of data acquisition that has taken place, but then there's also siloed data that is there across applications, now cloud, and then the internal tools. And today data is more diverse than ever. And if you see, it's we moved into more like a borderless data center where data is distributed from core to edge to cloud. And then most of the organizations today are realizing that there's a massive amount of dark data that is present, which is essentially, they don't even know that there is the dark data that is present. And there's the pressure of the governance and compliance that comes into effect, added to this whole dark data. Now, as a result, most of the organizations are looking, to have a framework to solve it. And one of the framework is obviously data ops. So data ops is all about getting the right data to the right place, at the right time to the right user. Right user is very important, right? And because of incorporating data ops, what you see is that there's an improved business agility. It has a direct effect on, increased revenue generation. There's enhanced customer experience as well. And obviously, as a result of all of this, there's that improved regulatory compliance. But let's take a step back and look at what is this data management, which is where data governance, data compliance, and everything falls in, right? So data management is a framework. If you look at it, there are multiple subsets of it. You have data integration, there's data governance, which we are talking today. There's streaming data integration because of, the fact that we're moving into fast-paced, data acquisition. There's obviously the important aspect of metadata management that comes in. Data quality is becoming an important aspect. Master data management, and newly emerging trend, which is essentially what we're calling as privacy ops, right? So essentially, we've been largely concerned with data acquisition. We didn't focus much on data quality. And today we are faced with that, governance challenges because data is growing rapidly at an unimaginable pace. What I would say is that the internet outcome is to implement an effective data governance strategy, which not only addresses net new data, but should also take into account the historical data that is there. So to get to the next level of data intelligence, I think the first thing is to break that silo, and what I would say is that the aspect of the store part of the, entire step, which is essentially you have a very good understanding of structured and unstructured data set.
Yeah.
It's not difficult because previously customer just used, repositories as dumping grounds. Now it becomes more intelligent in terms of you understand where's that structured data set, where's the unstructured data set. Technologies like object storage helps you in that aspect. Once you do that, you're also going to be doing that dark data assessment using various tools. It's essentially to uncover, what kind of data is there, should this data be there within the organization? Basically you have an entire view of your data landscape. And once you have that, then you're going into enriching that data by basically, ascribing, a customized metadata so that you're able to search, index, query, all of this as quickly as possible. So all of this will ensure that you're activating, the entire organization by having a very strong plumbing line across the various data sources that are there. And as a result, then you're able to monetize, you're able to take quick actions and all of those. So to summarize, like I said, data is diverse, it's complex. You would want to be able to kind of classify structured, unstructured data. You would want to have a very strong plumbing line. At the same time, have a lot of data intelligence, ascribed to the data aspect of it. And there are various tools and technologies that would surely help in those scenarios.
Sure. Thanks, Ocean. Thank you so much for that. I think you picked up a relevant point about the cloud movement, right? This is what off late we are seeing as part of the digital journey. I think there are a lot of movement to cloud now. So Mathan, probably I'll come to you on this question, right? So cloud security governance is slightly a different ballgame altogether. While my understanding is very limited, but what I hear from my clients and my colleagues is that, that requires a lot of configuration level things to be handled really well. So it doesn't kind of become a huge challenge eventually, right? So, but can you share some point of view in terms of what are the things they should be doing from the cloud security point of view, right? And what do you think is the right step ahead for organizations on that?
I think any governance begins with the ability to have a rightful visibility. That's where the typical governance can begin with. Most often where corporates, whichever have adopted cloud in whichever format, private or public in nature, the ability of the function, in this case, if it is security function, to have a visibility into what is happening in the cloud has been minuscule, right? So if that has been addressed and avoided by incepting technologies to provide you the adequate level of visibility into what is happening in cloud, obviously then you are able to get the better governance that you require. So there, technically, again, when I have come across cloud inceptions that have happened, I have gone back to the drawing board to only ensure that the basic principles are adhered to and followed through. Most often cloud, given the nature that it is outside, invisible to you, people do not typically try and acquire what is happening inside by virtue of log. Log is the technical way that you would get to see what is happening in an IT environment, digital trace as it is left by. So ensuring logs in the IT and as well in the protection environment that you have deployed in the cloud, as long as you are able to obtain that back into your central infra, wherever that central infra is, as long as you are able to bring that back into your central infra, cloud visibility into the cloud becomes a reality for us. Once you gain that visibility, obviously you can then build upon parameters that you would want to monitor very specifically as actions happening within the cloud and build a better governance to it. So at layman level, technically it is not a massive changeover. It is the ability for you to acquire that visibility by digital traces that are left back into corporate is the core principle that I have tried and adopted, and I'm sure that works well.
Sure. Thanks, Mathan. So one, I would say, in a way related question to Abhishek. There's a lot of emphasis or conversation around the data localization now, right? The bill is mandating for certain category of data to be localized, right? So how do you think this is going to span in the near future? What kind of challenges and opportunities is going to cost the market and the industry?
So again, I'll share two perspectives on this, Mayuran. So one is why data localization. I think, the more people understand the background behind it, the more we'll appreciate basically why data localization overall. So as I think, the overall data proliferation is happening all across, and the more digital ways and means whether it is social media, whether it is, let's say, digital channels are being utilized both for consumption of services or for interaction likewise, the more footprint, more traceability is something which is left from you as a profile actually onto internet, right? On the other hand, there is a sizable set of digital crimes which are taking place and frauds taking place. And the ability of law enforcement agencies to actually get you the right justice actually gets delimited sometimes because of cross-border sharing of information and how the entire MLAT agreements actually happen between the countries put forth. And that's the pertinent need of having data localization. I mean, one can actually go through and read basically what cases were kind of asked from likes of Facebooks and Googles and know what kind of responses were given. And likewise, said that when you actually extend it to all the enterprises put across, there is definitely a pressure because when you are using basically a cloud service provider and they, let's say, don't have a data center back in India, when you are actually trying to kind of outsource or push some of your services outside, what you can and what you cannot sometimes have a very fine line. So for example, I can talk about in insurance sector right now, the regulation talks about your core data needs to be in India. So that actually limits the way you kind of put in the designs that what data can actually go to cloud or what data can actually go outside the borders. So that's, I mean, I'm just taking example of insurance, but definitely different industry sectors have their own connotations, whether you are actually operating only in India or across, that what data can be shared and where. And that's where the concepts of how even the service providers service you, how cloud service providers kind of set up their shops. I mean, all of that matters. So business is one angle. Again, second angle is more so how we see it from an end consumer standpoint. And I generally connote this as a conundrum which one has to live by in the era of digital trust. So we are the custodians as let's say corporates also who need to kind of balance this out whilst putting in right amount of visibility, whilst putting in right amount of data rights, which can be kind of leveraged by the end consumers. So I see a merit. But again, how far this can be extended is something which is still open-ended with the new bill to come by.
Yes. I think the challenges are still to be kind of explored in this area. But that's an interesting area. I mean, I honestly didn't know about the point you mentioned about the law enforcement challenges, right? I think that's a completely new perspective. Thanks for sharing that. So quickly coming to Sakshi, I mean, this is slightly a different question. Okay, I'm just going back to my cyber governance point, which I started off early. I mean, as we have gone through a significant digital transformation, many organizations have gone through, especially in the last 2 years' time, right? So most of these initiatives are run by the CIO organization, right? I mean, there's a very high potential that the factors around security and privacy, all these things may come a little later in the sequence of things, right? While we have this scenario, how do you think the CIOs and the CISOs can actually work more cohesively, right, in kind of digital transformation journeys?
Sure. No, that's a very interesting question. Let me take you back a little bit more than the pandemic era. So over the last decade, the role of CISOs and the security function, it has changed drastically, So traditionally, the CISO's role was to safeguard the organization against, cyber threats and potential risks that were there. And just a few years ago itself, security was a completely separate team that was hidden from the application team, from the projects team, because we were perceived as an obstacle for the new initiatives.
Absolutely.
Getting security approvals or defining security requirements would take several months, and that would hold back the projects and the deployments of a product on time. And now today, that's unthinkable. The pace of the modern business and the ongoing digital transformation, the focus of the CISO has totally shifted now. And the role has become very strategic and influential. So today, the role of the CISO is measured not only whether the business suffers a loss because of a data breach, but also how security is able to preempt the new initiative, making it possible to bring in the services and security standpoint. That's kind of the goal now. So and creating business opportunities as well. So I can share an example from my previous experience at KFC. In one of our biggest markets, we found a severe vulnerability in a mobile app. The mobile app that would allow customers to place food orders. Now the severity that could, it could hinder the product launch, and the marketing campaigns were already lined up, but it was an unacceptable level of risk. So we as a team collaborated with the marketing, digital, to get the vulnerabilities fixed, to get them retested and manage a timely launch. So we work so closely, so that now with the project team, so we can discover the vulnerabilities, remediate them, and mitigate them much sooner. So furthermore, security team, we kind of empower the business in creating this kind of a competitive advantage. So I feel like the theme is to embrace the change and break the silos. Security has to be designed to accelerate, the development process and helping businesses achieve all these digital experiences and innovation. It's just like, high-powered brakes on a race car today. Cybersecurity, has to make that high-speed digital a lot safer. So, the objective is to design these proper security controls, get involved at a very early stage in the digital projects. So, yeah, that's what I feel. And I think another point that I want to cover is that we need to be very proactive in understanding what are the projects going on the digital side, and be a part of those teams. Expose the inefficiencies at an early age, because the teams are not aware, that this could come up from a security idea. So that kind of a cohesive approach, I feel, is going to be a very competitive advantage for companies.
Absolutely. Sakshi, I think it's good to hear the changes happening, right? I mean, it has been always the CISO is the last one to come into the boardroom, or any kind of ideation sessions, right? I mean, as you rightly said, always been seen as somebody is going to put in controls or restrict the growth, right? Now that perception is changing and they are being part of the growth story. Fantastic to hear that. So Venkat sir, I come to you on one question, which is very specific to the industry you're representing, right? Which is highly regulated in many ways. And you need to be compliant to various requirements. I mean, globally, as well as some of the, regulators within India as well, will work in such scenarios. I mean, should you look at kind of developing one, unified cyber framework, or you kind of tackle it one by one, right? And which is working in the industry as of now?
Financial services industry, there are 2-3 aspects which have been governing the compliance part. One is the cyber security framework, which has been given by the Reserve Bank of India. They also come out with master directions on the digital payment system security control. This has been given last year.
Venkat sir, sorry, your voice is not very clear. If you can get close to the laptop, probably that would help.
In case of regulated industries, it will be regulated organizations. It will be governed by the regulator. Okay, they will be giving some guidelines as to what framework we have to follow, and they will also be assessing the implementation of that framework. In case of banks, it is the cyber security framework given by RBI, which came into force from 2016. Okay. Then now they have come out with a master direction on digital payment security control to take care of the digital space. Most of these were already there, existing. There was this Gopalakrishna committee recommendations which were implemented in the banks. And banks have been following these cybersecurity implementations from maybe around 20 years. They have been doing it. Okay. So now it has become more prevalent because of the sophistication of attacks and the nature of since the digital space has become all prevalent. Okay. So my this thing is, first is the organizations should know in what are all the requirements to first is the risk assessment, and then the measuring the risk, and then putting it controls to minimize or mitigate the risk. Okay, so this and then there is a periodic audit or the review which is happening to ensure that the vulnerabilities are getting mitigated appropriately. Okay, this should be the focus of the organization. Of course, see, with the data protection bill which is in the offing, I am sure that the cyber security budgets are going to go up, because there will be need for putting in additional controls, and we have to work towards that. and there will also be manpower required to manage. At present, the cybersecurity industry is facing an acute shortage of skilled manpower. There will be need for creating awareness. There will be need for skill sets, upgradation of skill sets. So all these things, it should be a concerted effort. So because see, even the legal aspects and the awareness about the legal aspects of the data protection bill, that itself is a big challenge. Okay.
Correct.
So there is a need for focusing on various things to achieve the objective. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Venkat sir. I think that was very. I found that to be quite a basic way of answering a complex problem. Right. I think that's what at times helps, rather than looking at complex things with a complex lens. Looking at complex things with a basic lens actually can resolve a lot of big problems. Thanks. With that, Sudharsan, I'll come to you with my last question, considering the time we have in front of us, right? So, I mean, considering the digital surge we are seeing, right? According to you, what are the sectors which are more prone to cyber attack these days? And probably if we can rationalize why, that would help us to understand that better. Sudharsan, are there? The screen is frozen.
Me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I mean,
should I repeat the question? I don't.
Yeah. If you can repeat the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. So I was asking. I mean, considering the digital surge, right? I mean, the transformation we are going through. I mean, is there any specific industry or sector which is more prone to cyber attacks?
Okay.
And if yes, and why do you think so?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think so. That's a very important question, right? So the question is, which are the sectors that are more prone to cyber attacks? And in my view, there are no exceptions. All sectors are undergoing digital transformation, and will continue to be prone to cyber attacks. Now, this is a very interesting. I think just a couple of days back, I just saw the global cybersecurity outlook report that was released by the World Economic Forum. It came out in Jan 2022. So there, 81% of the respondents believe that digital transformation is going to be a key driver, for improving cyber resiliency. Now, we also know that, crucial digital assets, worth billions and trillions of dollars collectively, are bound to be targeted by the cyber criminals. And today, if you see, it's, cyber attacks are organized more as a service, right? You have ransomware as a service, cyber attack as a service. And there was this very interesting statistics that said that, if cyber crime were a country, the GDP would be bigger than almost 183 countries, there, which is almost pegged at about $1.5 trillion. So essentially, all organizations are directly or indirectly affected. And what we also know that once you're attacked, it takes on an average it takes about 280 days to identify and respond to a cyber attack. Just knowing that you've been attacked. So understanding the risk is key to formulating that comprehensive cybersecurity strategy. But aspects like small and medium business are highly vulnerable, as the attacks are random, they're unsophisticated, automated, and often, small and medium businesses, they overwhelm the security apparatus, of these organizations. And the same survey that I was mentioned, the World Economic Forum survey, 83% of the respondents indicated that they're concerned about cyber resiliency in the SME ecosystem. So essentially, while there are trillions of dollars to be targeted, in the large organization, because the bounty is large, the attack is planned for many months, countermeasures are developed, and often, attackers are changing their tactics, techniques, and procedures. But I believe all organizations need to be prepared and have a strong contingency plan. Yeah. So I would say all sectors are prone to being attacked.
Okay, great. Sure. Thanks, Sudharsan. I think that's a very comprehensive answer for that, because end of the day, it is difficult to narrow down which sector will get impacted, because I mean, that's not the lens the attackers are applying on, right? They're going after everything, every single possibility these days. Superb. I think with that, probably I'll bring my questions to an end. If there are any questions from the audience, we can pick it up with the panelists. I'm sure somebody's coordinating for that. Okay, so I don't see there are any questions here in the chat room. I would thank each one of you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and got to hear some eye-opening points from most of you in terms of your perspectives. I think, and what really helped is that we had representation from almost diverse industry experts, right? So I think that also really helped to kind of bring some perspective. Thank you so much for the opportunity to interact with you all, and thanks to the organizers for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to our wonderful jury once again for those amazing takeaways and insights. It's been absolutely pleasure for all of us, and I'm sure it has been completely enriching and eye-opening. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they say that philosophy cannot be expressed by words, but it can be truly impressed by the choices that we all make. It is time to understand and find out who is the next speaker. So let's take a look at our next speaker.